everyone, it's Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com, and today I want to share with you our Victorian farmhouse restoration kitchen plans. So if you have been following along with this journey, you know that we purchased our farmhouse here about 2 months ago now. So far, we have had all the hardwood floors refinished, all the trim painted, the walls painted, and most of the place is looking pretty good. Have a lot of decorating and collecting to do, need a little bit more furniture for certain areas. That will all come in time. But one of the major projects I wanted to take on right away, which I've told you before, is the kitchen. And the reason for that is, obviously for this blog, I create a lot of content where I make recipes, and although redoing a kitchen isn't 100% necessary for my job, it's pretty important that I have aesthetically pleasing videos, and this kitchen behind me is definitely not cutting it. Now, in a recent video, I did share with you our mortgage-free, debt-free story, and I explained that we did not always do stuff like this. So when we first bought our home, our last home, we held off on renovations for 5 years. The kitchen was not pretty. The whole house pretty much wasn't pretty, but we are very committed to debt freedom. And so just putting that out there, that if you are a newlywed or you're just a couple who needs to get a few other financial priorities in place first, I know the pressure to renovate and make things perfect, the new trendy style, is always a pressure. When I was first married, we didn't have Pinterest and we didn't have Instagram. And so I did not feel this pressure, and so I know today it's really heavy. And my encouragement to you is just not rush into things like this. Don't take me ripping out my kitchen and renovating it as something that you need to do. I could definitely, if we did not have the finances right now to do this, live with this kitchen. Done it before and I would do it again. Just putting that out there so that these kind of things don't feel like pressure to have the perfect home. For me, like I said, this is very important because I want my videos to be top notch, and the colors and style of this kitchen, not what I'm wanting for my business. So this is something that we're gonna do. First, I wanna tell you about the design plan. So I mentioned this in one of my recent videos, but I hired a friend of mine from Instagram. She does historical home consultations. She doesn't have like a decorating degree or anything, but she is one of those history buffs who finds a lot of joy in researching things and in finding historical patterns, and she reads old catalogs and looks on eBay, and she just has a lot of ways that she collects knowledge about historical homes. And so what I hired her to do was to help me figure out how this home would have looked in the time period that it was built. Now, not to an extreme extent. We're gonna have modern conveniences. Of course, I'm not gonna cook on an old wood cook stove, and we're gonna have a refrigerator and all that kind of stuff. But I at least wanted to honor when it was built as much as possible, just so that this home wouldn't look outdated in 10 years. So I knew that if I came in here, slapped up subway tile, put in an apron front sink, and just made it the modern style, that it had the potential to go out of style. But if I honor what this home was intended to look like, then it will carry us through, and so we can do this again. That's my goal. So I hired my friend Paige from Farmhouse Vernacular. I'll link her below again. I think I've told you guys about her like 3 times now, to make some drawings for me. So this is gonna be super helpful because we are going to be hiring a lot of this done. In our last house, we did pretty much everything DIY style. Now we have a home-based business, 5 kids, we homeschool. We didn't have time for this. We need this kitchen done. And so we're gonna hire a lot of it done. And I didn't really know how to convey a lot of my vision to like a cabinet builder. So what I've hired Paige to do is to draw everything out to scale, basically as instructions for an electrician, builder, plumber, all of that stuff. Now I am going to still be going light and bright like I did in the last house. I thought about incorporating some different colors, like maybe some blue in the cabinets. I'm still sort of thinking about it, but I also don't want to get sick of the colors. And so I feel like light and bright would be good for video because It just kind of is a great background for all other colors. And then also, again, it'll stand the test of time. Still gonna bring in quite a few warm woods. We're gonna leave the floors warm wood as well. I'm gonna start by explaining to you this back wall with Paige's drawings. So as you can see, currently there is a microwave. We do not use a microwave, never did in the old farmhouse. The refrigerator is placed awkwardly over here. There's also a dishwasher. In the last house, we never used a dishwasher. We just rinse the dishes really quick and use the same ones over and over again, so we don't feel that that would be necessary. Plus, there's not a lot of space on this wall. I mean, there is a lot of space, but for the amount of things that have to fit. So let me show you the issue with this room and why it was so complicated. As you can see over here, there is a large window. There is a center beam that is load bearing. There's another large window. And then there's of course this huge wall of everything kitchen related. And then when you go over here, there is some double doors, French doors, and then there is a pantry. So my issue is that I wanted to expand the kitchen beyond this area over here. Okay, so here's how Paige drew the back wall. Now, in keeping with the vintage theme, I did purchase a vintage stove, which I will show you. We found it for $300 on buy sell trade. My husband had to drive about an hour and a half to get it, but it is lovely and it'll have to be converted to gas. All right, there's way too much clutter in this garage to show you this stove. I'm gonna do my best because I don't really think I'm gonna be able to move all this by myself, and Luke's working on other things right now. But here is our stove. Now the top, there's more pieces over here that will be gas burners, and I do believe it's gonna look really pretty. It's got a couple doors and a couple of drawers at the bottom. So if any of you have any experience with vintage stoves, send me some of your info in the comments. This is my first time, but I loved the look of it. Honestly, I was looking at some vintage reproduction stoves, and a lot of the ones I really loved were $8,000 to $10,000, or I could just buy an actual vintage stove. And so clearly that's the route I decided to take. I have ink on my fingers for my kids, but also we purchased a vintage farmhouse sink. So it's not the modern day apron front, it is actual vintage, for $350 at a salvage shop in our area. Okay, you have to pardon our cluttered garage. Here is currently how the sink looks. Sorry, my kids are being a little bit loud. I need to clean it up, of course, but a lot of the enamel was in good shape, which is why I chose to go with it. I'm excited to put my draining dishes over here on the drain board, and then the dishes when they need to be washed here in the main part of the sink. And then I'm gonna have Signature Hardware send me a wall mount faucet. Currently there is one window, not optimal for the amount of light that we want. So in Paige's proposed plan, there will be 3 large windows, eliminating a lot of this space up top, which is why we opted to not go with upper cabinets at all. Now we'll have some open shelving, as you can see, and then we're just gonna have a few furniture pieces here, which I hope to have custom built, and the refrigerator here. Now I realize that this scenario does not leave a whole lot of space for storage. We also do have a really large walk-in pantry. The shelving in there isn't ideal, but we will build quite a bit more, and a lot of storage can happen in there. So I'm not super concerned about the amount of storage. We like to keep things pretty minimal. Most of these cabinets, even though the ones that you see are pretty well filled, they're really not. And I haven't actually gone through the process of organizing anything. When we moved, I just shoved everything in there because I knew that we're gonna be ripping it all out. And so I wasn't super concerned with spending a whole lot of time making things in the optimal spot. And so I really think that once I get everything all organized, it won't be near as hard to fit it. So I showed you my original reveal video of this home that I have my office in an area over here, and it is just sitting on an old sideboard with my printer and my computer, and it's kind of shoved together. Well, Paige drew for me a very lovely office. Okay, so this will be how the outside looks. It's basically gonna be cabinets all the way down to the floor. But when you open it, it will look something like this. Basically be a desk, my computer, a printer. I can actually organize my office. Super exciting. I don't really have anywhere else in this house to put an office. So this was very necessary for me. And hopefully my cabinet guy will know exactly what to do. All right, Paige also gave instructions here. says for the electrician, 4 plug-in the center section, 2 plugins on side sections, 1 under shelf, and then also under shelf lighting in the center. So it's going to look very built-in and kind of how it would back in the day, but yet house all of my modern day necessities for my business. So that's exciting. Over here in the corner where I have the plate rack hanging, we're going to put a large dining table with 6 chairs or 7 chairs where we can fit, because the dining room's kind of across the house and we find that we often just want to eat in here, and we feel that there's definitely a way to fit a large table and then still a large work table here. So we're not going to have what will look like a traditional island. Paige encouraged me that there weren't really those kind of large bulky islands back in the day, but instead what's going to be right here will basically look like a little bit of a taller table. We're going to have one that is on casters and also with a marble top. I found a few inspiration photos from Pinterest, which I'll show you here, for a table that I'm hoping I can get custom built, because the practical, frugal side of me wants to think I'll find one eventually, but in reality, what I want is going to be a very custom size and a custom look. I know exactly what I'm looking for, and it's going to have to fit, you know, right here, and yet I also want it to be as large as possible for this space, just because with the way our kitchen is set up, there's going to be very little workspace. There isn't now, and there really isn't a way to add it, except for a large work table, which will be more than enough. So I want to make sure that it's as large as possible, because this kitchen is really big and the space is very underutilized. Like at the moment, I could probably do a couple of cartwheels in here with the amount of space that we aren't using, yet whenever I'm cooking, I have nowhere to put anything. So utilizing this area with a nice large table for working a taller table, and then that area over there with a dining table, and then my large built-in office currently where there's just my computer sitting from floor to ceiling, and of course then the whole back wall for appliances. I believe that this kitchen will have most of the space utilized in a productive way while still allowing for good flow of traffic through. That was something that Paige really considered for me, because we wanted to make sure that we could still move through here, but yet I needed some space to set my stuff. At the moment, cooking in here is very frustrating. Obviously, we're gonna be getting rid of a lot of cabinets by adding the additional windows, but considering that I can store things in other places, I can minimize what we have, to add more light in here is so important, not just for the aesthetics and my mood, but also for the business, because currently this is a really, really dark room, and I have 2 large lights on me. My camera brightness is turned way up, and still it's just a dark room. So to add a little bit more natural light, I'm totally willing to give up the space. Plus, we don't use a microwave anyway. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention, I'm going to extend the windowsill. I love having a large windowsill. In our last house, we had a nice large kitchen windowsill where I was able to put potted herbs and a couple of ironstone pitchers with fresh flowers. It was my favorite thing when I was doing dishes to look up and see those cheery windowsill plants. And currently it just feels like such a waste that there's windows and there's gonna be 3 windows and you can't put anything on the windowsill. I don't know if that's historically accurate, but I'm definitely doing it because I love a big windowsill. I just think it adds so much charm and character. I'll also be adding several hooks up above the lower cabinets to put things like cast iron skillets. So then that'll also eliminate the need to have some lower storage, as well as hooks on some other walls for aprons. I love to have things that are practical, but yet also really beautiful to be displayed. It just gives it that lived in, comfy farmhouse feel. We have a contractor type person. Basically, it's a person that can do everything from building to electrician work, plumbing, and all of that on Monday to evaluate this project so we can kind of get the scope of the time frame and the cost, and hopefully be starting right away. I don't know what this guy's availability is like to start, but we would like to be doing this ASAP because I want to get back to making some pretty videos for this, as well as just to enjoy the kitchen in this home that was renovated sometime in, I think like maybe the 2000s or late 90s. And I would like to bring it back to more like the 1890s. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're brand new to my channel and you'd like to follow along with more of our farmhouse restoration, I'm gonna be sharing every little thing. We've even been sharing videos along the way as we find treasures from antique shops for this place. I'll probably be sharing how I do the entryway, the living room. I mean, everything in this house pretty much needs to be decorated. At this point, we have a blank canvas with the floors all refinished and the paint nice and fresh, but a lot of the decor that we brought from the last house just doesn't really suit this one. I've discussed that in a couple other videos, which I'll link below. But if you wanna follow on with more of this journey, it's gonna be ongoing, probably for years. We've got a barn to restore, a couple of cottages. It's all gonna take time. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I also make 2 new videos every week on food from scratch, natural living, and a handmade home. Thank you so much for stopping by our farmhouse.